Welcome back to the podcast, you beautiful soul. I have a beautiful guest with me today, someone who I'm inspired by, someone who I've been watching her content for a bit of time now. She's changing lives, she's making an impact, and she's going to be sharing a lot of wisdom with you today. So please have pen and paper ready and really listen up because I have Sammy J or Samantha J, the Illuminator, multi eight-figure award-winning entrepreneur, luxury business strategist, medicine woman, which I look forward to getting into. 5 times best-selling author, soulful speaker, and a hell of a lot more, which we're going to hear about today. Sammy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to this chat. I've actually got a big podcast day today, so this is number 2 of 3 for today. So I just get so inspired hearing people's stories, and I think with that, I would love to hear your story. I don't know your story, so I think a lot of these podcasts I get the most out of it because I get to learn and be a student. So I'd love to hear your story of how you've been able to build the empire that you've built and you are building, while enjoying your life, balancing your life at the same time. So I'd love to hear your story.
Amazing. Yeah, it's such a big question, your story. For me, my story really started when I was about 13 or 14 years old. For the listeners out there, I don't know what you were doing, or if you reflect back at what you were doing at 13 or 14. For me, I grew up in a little town in Wagga Wagga in New South Wales, and my family were farmers. A lot of people will get surprised when I say that. They're like, you don't really look like a farmer today.
You don't look like a girl from Wagga Wagga, that's for sure.
Anyway, so I'm from Wagga there, and as a little girl, like I saw my mum and dad struggling on the farm, and it felt like I was in this environment where it was like we didn't really know if ends were ever going to meet.
Yeah.
And even as a 13 and 14-year-old, I felt pretty like, strong-minded at that time. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to have a life where it's like that. And so at 13 and 14, we were traveling to Bali at a time as a family, and I saw all this bright jewelry, and I decided to create my first startup at 13 years old. I imported jewelry for 30 cents, sold it for $30. In the coming years, I worked at a bakery for 20 hours a week outside of school. And so from a very young age, I always felt this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. By the time I was 19 years old, I'd just got in the top 6% of Australia with my HSC marks.
Wow.
However, at that time, I was experiencing a mental health challenge. I don't know if any of the listeners can relate, where you're kind of questioning like the ideas society have for you, what makes you a successful man or a successful woman. And I really was questioning that at that point. Do I go to university, or do I keep following this entrepreneurial spirit inside? And anyway, with this mental health challenge I was having at the time, I couldn't really get out of bed, to be honest. I went from top 6% of Australia to like pretty much in bed, unable to get out, depressed, and like questioning life. My dad, he put a desk in the corner of the room, and he threw me a phone book, and he's like, we have this underperforming property development. You're really good at business. You just got amazing results. Like, give it a crack.
Yeah.
So what started as really a quest to get well from my mental health challenges in a few short years, simply by me standing for building property developments that really related to my own personal challenges at the time around where do I belong in the world? It turned into a multi-eight-figure company, and I became an award-winning entrepreneur at that time. And so I was 22 years old. I had everything. I had the car, I had investment properties, I was an award-winning entrepreneur. However, to be honest, behind the scenes, I was feeling pretty empty inside. And that's when I decided to travel to over 20 different countries. I learned from the leading authorities in neuroscience, shamanism, sacred sexuality, and I wanted to really study and understand, how do we create that level of success but also be deeply fulfilled inside?
Great question.
Yeah, and so after that, I created my unique methodology, and now I teach that to others, and I've got a vision to help 100 million people. So we want to help 100 million businesses, and with each person who does business with us, we help to rescue little girls that are caught in child sex trafficking to get closer to home. And the reason that this mission's so close to my heart is that it was only, in the middle of my 20s that I recognized the mental health challenges that I was experiencing were a byproduct of my sexual abuse experiences that I hadn't remembered from such a young age. So I believe that, for people with like you and I, we can grow our income, we can grow our influence, and we can really unify the world through the way that we're doing our businesses.
That is a powerful story. So much in there. Very achieved at such a young age, and you're very mission driven. There's a fair bit I want to go into. I would
Mhm.
love to hear the mental. We'll go this one first. You just on the point you just finished on the passion for helping women in sex trafficking and where that's come from for you. If you're okay going there, I'd like to know, I guess, your healing journey through that and being able to. I literally posted a video of this yesterday about your traumas being your gifts once you've healed through it. And you look at Oprah Winfrey, you look at Viktor Frankl, you look at so many successful people. Yourself is such a beautiful example of once you've worked through the pain, it gives you absolute passion and purpose and drive. So I'd like to understand, I guess, your healing journey through that and how it does shape you into who you are and how you've been able to help so many people through it.
Mm. I remember I remembered that trauma shortly after becoming an award-winning entrepreneur. So at the time, it was like every day I was putting on the suit, I was doing all the motions of that, and I felt like something was off. So I went and organized a mentor meeting. That mentor meeting took me through a breakthrough, and I was trying to understand where this kind of never-ending feeling of darkness in me, that no matter what I created externally, there felt like there was some darkness in me that was kind of
Mm.
holding me back. And I remember sitting on my family farm by the river and her taking me through this experience to understand what that darkness was. And I remember her regressing me back, and out of nowhere, like the flash of this memory coming, just pouring in tears. And truly, like before that moment, I never in my wildest dreams ever thought that like as a young girl, I would have been sexually abused in that way. And so I remember as soon as I remembered it, it was like all the little memories of my entire life made sense. The
Mm.
drugs, the sexual like promiscuity, the way I would highly sexualize myself, the way that I kept looking for men to treat me a certain way, to essentially abuse me. Like there was so many self-destructive things that I did that ultimately all made sense because it was a part of myself that was trying to really remember the abuse and and heal it. And so deep inside, I had this unconscious belief I deserved to be abused. And
Mm.
so I then
Wow.
perpetuated that abuse. Yeah.
Wow. Can you go into I teach limiting beliefs. It's one of my things I work through with, but I love hearing other coaches and healers. I actually not to change topic a little bit. I saw you went to see Jack Delosa recently, and I've done work with the Entourage before, and he really helped shape my journey. But off topic, but just thought I'd throw that out there. Uh, what's your, I guess, your ways that you've either done it yourself or that maybe you can give some advice to people who want to work through some of their limiting beliefs?
Mm. It was an NLP breakthrough that I did, and I really like that methodology. I've done an NLP breakthrough now 3 times, and what I love is the speed by which it takes you back
Mm.
and then really cleans up all your timeline.
Yeah.
So I'm not trained in NLP, but I do think like genuinely it was the best therapy I ever did. The other things that I really like, if you're somebody who you see self-destruction in your life right now, and you really don't feel like you can kind of end that pattern. It can be choosing unhealthy partners. Like just ultimately, it's really a journey into your own self-worth,
Yeah.
and it's easy for us to feel ourselves when there's such deep level of pain and emptiness. It's easy for us to fill our life with addictions, porn, sex, promiscuity, like so many different things that we can fill our life with. Ultimately, though, what we need to learn is emotional regulation.
Mm.
I actually didn't have a tool for emotional regulation. So I would go to, addictions, porn, all the different stuff I've used in my life, even overworking. As
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we can use overworking. So the remedy is emotional regulation. And one very small tool that you can do with that is just when you notice yourself going into them familiar patterns, just simply closing your eyes and just closing the eyes and just being with the sensation and breathing into the feeling, the sensation, learning to name it, and just recognizing it as a small little kid, a girl or a boy who may be 1, 3, 5, 10, who literally at that point didn't know how to get its needs met. So it's just running the show. And so as a wise adult that we now are, if we can learn to parent that part of ourselves and get them needs met in a healthy way, then there'll be less gap between, you know, our awareness that the pattern's playing out, and we've done destructive things versus, oh, I'm about to do the pattern. Let me just, before I do it, see how I can get that need met in a different way.
Is it a lot of consciousness there? And then I guess, does meditation fall into that in terms of putting awareness on your thoughts? I guess because I find, I guess from personal experience, it's like becoming aware of it is the first step. Like aware of those thoughts, aware of those emotions, aware of those, I guess, unconscious habits that lead you down the path of food or porn or overworking or drinking or avoiding or whatever, or arguments, starting arguments in a relationship.
Yeah.
So what's yeah, I guess I don't even know where to take this question, but how can someone start to become better at becoming conscious of it?
Yes. I think that in the morning, it's really good to actually have a time of silence before we open up our phone. I think it doesn't even need to be meditation. It's just, can you walk to the beach? Or is there a way that even when you're sitting in the bed, you just take a time before you get out of the bed to connect into your mind and go, what's my mind like today? What am I thinking? How's my heart today? What's my gut know I need to do today? And just these very simple centering and noticing practices can really help with that, to just bring ourselves into ourself, because the world is so noisy, social media, other people. And so, you know, actually Jack DeLosa has this quote, I'm just paraphrasing, but it's some quote about like, when the voice inside of you is louder than the voices outside of you, I know you've found success or something. And I think that quote's really good, because essentially it's like at the start of your day, connect into yourself, connect into your inner voice, let that voice be louder. And the more louder it becomes, then the less you're going to lose yourself through destructive behaviors.
Powerful, really powerful. I want to get to the confidence stuff, but I want to do one more topic before we get there. I'll use Jack because you actually just mentioned him, and I've stolen this quote off him, and I use it all the time. But he talks about becoming a Buddha in a Benz when it comes to life. There's the Buddha, which is the fulfillment, the happiness, the contentment, the healed, at peace version of you, and then the Benz is the commercial side, making sure money is good, cash flow is good, KPIs are hit, system processes, all the above. And I know from what I've gathered from you, you're quite similar with your ways of teaching, where it is the let's do well commercially, but let's not burn ourselves out the process. Let's have a fulfilling relationship, look after our mental health. I'd like to know your approach towards that topic. What would you suggest to entrepreneurs, or not even entrepreneurs, just people that are trying to do well and succeed in life and not necessarily burn both ends of the candle, and being able to have a sustainable, balanced life? I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so from a personal development perspective, I talk about having one foot in your sense of appreciation for who you are here today, like an imperfect person. So we need to, and this is a great practice to do at the start and end of your day, is like appreciate who you are and really deeply feel that sense of gratitude for all that you are and all that life is today. And then we need another foot in our desire to be more, to grow, and to do more. And what we've seen is like, we've seen an imbalanced world where there's people that only care about the inner stuff, you know, love light, and they're purpose driven. You know, they don't have the wealth and they don't have the profitability to make the world a better place. And it's like the Buddha on the rock. And then we've got the complete opposite of people who are so they're so profit driven, they're so let me be more, do more, nothing's ever enough, which is where I was at the start of my journey, where they're never enough for themselves and they feel unfulfilled. And that's why we need both.
Beautiful. What would you say have been some of the ways that you've been able to do that for yourself? Because you come from a 22-year-old, 8-figure award-winning entrepreneur, properties, achievements, like killing the commercial aspect. What's been some of the things that you've been able to do to balance that scale a little bit more and be more fulfilled in your personal life?
The biggest thing is that I'm more focused on how's the journey feeling. So rather than, I just ran an event last week, it was easy for me to catch my thoughts like, we got this many registrations, this people signed up. Instead of focusing on the metrics and those external parts of motivation, instead I was like, how much fun did I have? What's the memories I'm creating? You know, how can I enjoy this journey? And I don't I don't set the benchmark on be perfect, Sam. The benchmark for me is show up and have the most fun and enjoyment you can have. And what I've seen is that all the best results of my life have always come on the other side of that.
That's powerful. Really,
Yeah.
really, really cool distinction just then.
Mm.
It comes to mind. I don't know who said it actually. I'm trying to remember who it was, but it might have been Ed Milet actually. I heard him on a podcast recently, and it's like linking your self-worth or confidence not to the achievements, but to your intentions and to who you are and the more emotional aspect of who you are, being a good man, a good woman, a good human being, rather than the status or the accumulation, which is never enough. It's the mirage that you never arrive to.
Yeah.
I'd like to go into confidence. I just kind of mentioned that word then. Your passion for women, your passion for helping women with their confidence, their self-worth, how they show up in their personal life, their professional life. I guess, what is confidence to you? What's authentic confidence to you? And then how does a woman or a man work on their sense of confidence?
Confidence to me is built upon self-honesty, that
Mm.
recognition that we are imperfect and we feel comfortable within our own imperfections, flaws, and insecurities.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the more that we can be honest that we are all imperfect and we can learn how to love and approve of where we are having shortcomings, then we will simply be able to be our authentic self in the world, and we won't wait to feel confident. This is the biggest mistake people do, is they go, I need to just wait till I feel confident. Confidence is not something that happens here. Confidence is built by taking action, keeping promises with ourselves, and loving ourselves through the process of failure and success.
Mm.
And when we don't associate confidence with failing or succeeding, and instead a practice of taking imperfect action, that's when we learn self-trust and we become a confident person by continuing to take that action.
That's powerful. I'd like to, I guess, segment that a little bit more. Is before camera, we were speaking about your passion of helping women and helping them with their confidence. And I guess, how's that showing up at the moment with the women that you work with, whether it's the lack of belief in themselves to make decisions, whether it's a lack of belief in themselves and they're not blaming to a degree, but using their partner as excuses for them not having to do it. I think I'd like to know from you, I guess, what's the common thing that you find with your clients when it comes to confidence? And then what do you do with them to improve it with them?
The biggest thing I'm seeing so far with women is there's the idea and the want and the dream to want to do different things, right? And even when they come to an event, they might even see another woman and they're like, wow, look what, like, of course she can do it. However, there's this separation that happens. So it's like, of course she can make it happen, but I can't.
Mm.
And then what also comes with that is like jealousy or envy or making excuses again for like, let me just, wait to one day I'm going to feel more ready, or wait for one day when I'm going to feel more confident. And so there really needs to be education around the growth mindset that like, you're not actually ready. You've got to have a growth mindset. You've got to be able to take risks. You've got to recognize that another person is the example, and to like stop separating yourself, to see them as the example and that you are actually no different. And there's such a level of isolation that's out there with different women. If they only were in a supportive community, they would already feel more confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What is I guess, go into growth mindset a little bit more for me if you can. And what's helped you with your growth? I'm sure there's parts that have been missed out on the story, but you've killed it at such a young age. But I'm sure there's still been parts of that you've had to unlearn and relearn, or there's been things, obviously you mentioned the healing that you've done with that sexual aspect of you. I think I'd like to know, how can someone listening to this who might not have the resources to go get a coach or do a seminar or do a course, and they're like, okay, I want to work on my growth mindset, but how do you do that? Is it a decision? Is it some internal thoughts? Is it going to get an NLP coach to have a breakthrough with them? Like, how can someone start to develop more of a growth mindset?
Every single morning I wake up and I have a decision to lead from let's fucking go energy. And this is not about who do I think Sam is. This is about, I care about a purpose way larger than myself, and I connect to the vision of me at the end of my life of who was the woman and how did she already succeed. That is my evidence. My evidence is not what does my reality look like today. My evidence is looking at me on my deathbed and making the choice between, am I going to die with regrets, or am I going to connect to that? And I have such a visceral image of this like old woman version of me at my deathbed. And I'm like, she already did it. So I know that there's only one vision of my future, and that's the vision of me doing it. So every single day, I know my current version of me is just simply catching up to that identity. So I just need to keep making decisions today from the identity of that woman who already made it happen. The other thing that is here is that I'm a really strong, powerful woman, and no doubt there's heaps of strong, powerful men and women on this call listening. As a strong, powerful woman, I could easily do this alone. The biggest thing I've had to change is don't do it alone and 4 to 6 times the level of support you think you need to make this happen. Because my weakness is I'm like, I'll just do it without a mentor. I'll just do it without a team. And so what I really had to recognize very early on is that getting the mentor, getting the team, I really need to have a level of vulnerability inside of myself and also trust with others that I don't necessarily trust fully, or that I can be supported still to this day. And sometimes I don't trust my mentors. However, I have learned how to be more vulnerable, to let more people into my life. And that's really what has helped a lot. Yeah.
How have you done that last step? How have you learned to, it's just a theme I'm attracted into my life is a lot of vulnerability. I had a beautiful podcast this morning and one yesterday with 2 beautiful women, powerhouse women. And it's, this is just my judgmental stuff coming out, is like, you see someone, I think you kind of alluded to this before, like you see someone who's doing so well commercially. They look great. They've got the cars, the houses, the great looks. And it's like, you think they're perfect. They've got no flaws. They've got no issue. They've nothing like that. But then when I had this podcast with these women who look like all these powerhouses, and they still are, like just their level of vulnerability was so beautiful, and that balance was so there. So, I guess what's something you've been able to do to improve your level of vulnerability? Have you always been like that, or has there been some things that have really moved that for you?
Definitely the divine femininity work. So it's what I teach my clients now, because the divine femininity. So, when I was that award-winning entrepreneur, I was hard. I hardly cried. I didn't at all feel sensitive. Right. I was like emotionally unavailable to a great deal. And I had a lot of walls and like, don't fuck with me energy kind of up. And so what I did is that cost me a lot then. And it was like the depression, the suicidal feelings, the endometriosis, the mental health, like it was the level of pain of recognizing that the cost that came with just only having that facade was too great for my physical health, my mental and emotional. So I had to learn, I don't have the intimacy, the closeness. I don't have all of that. Yes, I might have success and money, but I don't have those other things. So I then did the divine feminine healing work of wondering like, wow, like for those out there, like start to journal. What was your mum? Was she absent, or was she emotionally unavailable? And when you be honest with the own pain that caused you, then you'll be like, oh my God, I could never inflict that on a partner or a child, and you just soon decide, I want to be a different type of woman. And for myself, I'm actually the complete opposite. Like I am so soft and sensitive and emotional and kind and warm and loving. However, in my childhood, when I was that way and completely in my feminine, I experienced a lot of pain and hurt. And that caused, like, I had so much trauma there that if I be soft, feminine, warm, loving, my best friends will like bully me. My family members will hurt me. They'll, all these different things. So it was very much a big journey for me to really go into why is it so unsafe for me to embody my femininity. And when I was able to be with that pain, I got to then have free will of, okay, this is how to be safe in the world as soft Sam. And if women do this, this is how to have boundaries. If people do this, this is how to have boundaries. And I really learned how to keep that part of me really safe and protected in this world in a way that I didn't have the knowledge when I was a little girl.
Is this, if you're okay going here, is that been through like a spiritual healer? Has this been through a mentor of yours? Is there a course that you've gone? Is this a plant medicine? Like in your intro, it says plant medicine. Oh, sorry, not plant medicine. Medicine woman, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to know about that. I'm big into healing. That's it's in my purpose to heal and improve the consciousness. So I find this stuff I'm very curious about this stuff. So What was the sort of healing journey for you to, I guess, balance that a little bit more? So, and just correct me if I'm wrong, you came from that sort of hardness, wasn't open up, wouldn't share emotions, to now you're quite on the other side of the spectrum. What was that journey like? Was there certain things you did, courses, experiences, journeys that you went through?
I went through facilitator trainings, which now now I teach all this to women.
Yeah.
So I did a womb awakening training where I
Wow.
regressed. I literally spent over 500 hours over 9 months regressing right through the womb. And so I re-experienced the entire journey of me being from embryo state and relived all those experiences of how my mum felt, because that's ultimately, they now have science that shows that our entire nervous system is built from that journey.
Yeah.
So I went through that whole journey and shamanically birthed myself, healed all the trauma for that over 500 hours. Then I did my sacred sexuality trainings, a 2-year training. I did a feminine tantra, like I'm a trained tantra teacher. So the sacred sexuality work, the womb awakening work, the female leadership training, like really, because there's not many examples of female, and there's female leaders out there. And then there's female leaders that are connected into their sensuality and their sexuality and their open heart. Because yes, it's one thing to be a powerful woman, and you can be powerful and you can be disconnected from your softness and your vulnerability and your heart. So it was very much a journey of how do I be powerful and also be open and soft and warm in my heart. And they're all the trainings that I did that really helped me. So now I help my clients, and I've got the first international certification where I actually bring it all together. Because I think, imagine what the world would be like if we had that energy. Like, imagine if women everywhere and men, imagine who our men would become if it was safe for them to bring their emotions and, their own tender parts to us as women. I know so many women who tell me stories where their men cries and breaks down, and then they literally ghost him, or you think he's less manly, or all these different, and I'm like, no, like he needs to be so supported and empowered through those places. So I think, imagine what our world would be like if we were those types of people. Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice for women, because we'll do women and men. So one piece of advice for women, one piece of advice for men, for them to improve the emotional side of them, whether it's sensuality, sexually, being vulnerable, being shut off, to help them become a more balanced human being. What would that one piece of advice be?
For men, it would be, look at how you keep your word. Because to a woman, your word is our safety, it is our protection. And so for men, keep your word. For women, it would be, learn how to become better at emotional regulation, because our emotions is what gives a man safety and protection or not. And if we're not safe with our own emotions, we can literally be dangerous to them, ourselves, our children. So get better at emotionally regulating.
I do want to get into the business stuff, but I've got one more question before we do that. What are your top three? And I don't say top as in that they're better than others, but first three that come to mind. Your three spiritual beliefs that have served you to who you are today.
The first one is, when spirit calls, I answer. And when I call spirit, spirit answers. So I do believe I'm always supported. And I live in that journey of, when I need something, I'm supported, yet when my heart calls me out of my comfort zone to my own highest potential, I move as well.
Wow.
The second one, this is a really, really good question. The second one is that, it's a really good question.
Sit with it a little bit if you want to.
I just realized my battery's going flat. I'm just going to plug it in.
All good. I'll pause and we'll continue. We're back. We took a quick breather just to get a battery charged. So your question was, you're not top three, not in any particular order, but three spiritual beliefs that have truly served you. Your first one was when, can you repeat it? It's like, when you're called to spirit, you answer it. And when can you repeat it? You said it nicer.
When I call spirit, spirit answers. And when spirit calls me, I answer.
Beautiful.
Yeah. My second one, goodness. I think one that I've adopted more recently is this idea that, like, everybody is really doing the best that they can. You know, I think so many different times in my journey, I've blamed others, or I've projected on others, or I've wanted to make people's actions towards me personal. However, if I can really hold enough compassion inside of myself for when I've been in the state that they're in, I recognize they're doing the best they can. And if somebody's not being kind to me, that's a reminder to be an even kinder to them. The third one, I think it would be the power of prayer. You know, the power of prayer, and this mantra that I say to myself, everything's happening for me, not to me. So many times in my journey, I've been suicidal, and that suicide and that despair and that overwhelming feeling like my life and what I'm here for is actually a burden. You know, it's felt like even being a human's burden for me at times. Being alive can feel like a burden. And in them moments, I remind myself everything's happening for me, not to me. And that, you know, there's so much spiritual support available if I only open myself up to prayer, if I ask for a sign. And a really good example of that was when I was 22 and I became a multi-figure award-winning entrepreneur. Like, I really was going to commit suicide then. That's how dark it took me. And I remember at that point saying, God, like, I felt like I'm here for all these big, bright, beautiful things, but it feels shitty. Like, this feels shit. Like, why am I going to keep going? Because this life feels shit. And I remember praying on my, in the shower, crying, and I'm like praying to God, like, you better come and, you know, show me a sign in the next week. And then what happened is, out of nowhere, divine intervention. I'm out with my business coach, we're having a coffee, and he says, I know someone who, you know, think he really wants to talk to you. And I was like, okay. So I call him and I'm like, hey, and he's like, you really need to talk to me, don't you? And I was like, oh. And, you know, that was just a few days before, like, the deadline I'd set around all these, you know, things around suicide. So truly, it's just like one prayer away, and that guidance and support can be there.
Beautiful. Look, this has been, I guess, mainly on the Buddha side of things. I'd like to go to the Ben side of things with you, because I know it's something that you do very, very well. I'm a coach, and I have a lot of coaches in my audience, or healers, I don't know, mentors, coaches. I just keep using the word coach. What would you say has been some of the, I guess, fundamentals, or some of the things that have really moved your business as a, I don't know if you call yourself a coach or refer to that as a coach or a mentor or a guide, but what have been some of the more tactical things that have really moved the needle for your business?
The first thing is having a really clear vision, like knowing viscerally where are you going to be in 1, 3, 5 years, and ensuring that every single morning you visualize that vision and show up as the person who's already succeeded with it.
Yeah.
The second thing is really, if you don't love cash, if you don't love money, just clean all that up ASAP, because the truth is like, too many coaches out there, they don't even know their purposeful and profitable numbers. So they're not even charging time for money. And if they were to look at their hours and the time that they're spending, it's probably better they go get a job at Macca's, right? Because we have these big hearts and we want to help all these different people. So from the get-go, make sure you're charging high ticket, make sure you're charging luxury, because if you're not, then probably in the first 2 to 3, 5 years of your coaching business, your life will actually decline. This is what happens for people. So get really good at like standing in an offer that delivers the absolute best transformation for people. If you're a life coach, like, figure out, how can I be a life coach and deliver a transformation that no one else is doing? And that's how you'll get paid 15K, 25K, 50K for it.
That's amazing. I'll speak from experience, because I've come from the fitness industry, opened up 3 studios by the age of 23. Wasn't happy, wasn't fulfilled. I felt a lot of alignment with what you've done. Wasn't on your level by any means, but just wasn't fulfilled and happy with what I was doing. And I was drawn to the coaching industry, drawn to doing this work. But then getting into, I guess, as a coach, just trying to help people. This is my experience anyways, is I wanted to help. I like healing with trauma, anxiety, limiting beliefs, self-image, like getting your life together. And I was like, I want to help the people with the most fucked up problems. And I was like, I want to help the worst people. I want to change lives, which is really cool. But I was attracting people that probably didn't have much money to invest into themselves. So something that I think has helped me, and I'd like to know your views on this, is being able to I guess I've changed to high ticket, but also getting clear on who are the people that I can help that can actually afford my services, that can actually pay for what it is that I'm worth, and actually building a business model to match the income that you're wanting to match rather than I just want to go help the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if that's something that you've experienced or just, I guess, your thoughts on that as a whole.
100%. I experience that too. And what I recommend people do is they create a diversified offer suite.
Yeah.
What I mean diversified is like you got an economy class, a business class, and a first class. So this means that straight away off the get-go, you want to be selling 15K, 25K. This is your main monthly recurring revenue model. So every single month, you've got 10K, 30K or more of income coming through with a main core high ticket offer. And then what you get to do from there is that you can have an upsell with VIP offers, or you can do downsells in a way to capture those people who, some people like they just want to come to a 1-day workshop or a 2-day workshop or a free masterclass. So a diversified offer suite enables you to capture everybody. You still have one specified niche, but you have different price points for them. And what I recommend people do is if you have a purposeful and profitable model, every time somebody buys a program, we give free drinking water. We help those that are hungry. We rescue people from child sex trafficking. So come up with a cause so that you can channel a little bit of that money. Might be to a book project or it might be to a speaking tour. Like come up with a percentage of how much you want to put, and then you can market your program. You could say, from every sale of this coaching program, we're going to have an annual men's retreat where we're going to help people for free at that retreat from our profits. So it's a way that's balanced. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. If you were just to give maybe, I like number three, just three practical tips for coaches or not just coaches, business owners to help them scale or build a scalable business, a profitable business, something that I think a bit of context on the question is I've come from my background, open up physical locations, 15 employees, 8 figures a year, no, sorry, 7 figures a year, and running, I guess, quite a real business. And then I'm on the Gold Coast, and every man and their dog is a life coach. They've got an NLP course, and now they're out to change the world. And I love that. I love the enthusiasm. I love the energy, the intention behind it. But then when it comes to, okay, well, do you actually know how to build a fucking business? Do you know how to actually get leads, have a CRM, nurture your clients, sell them, upsell them, downsell them, have a product line like what you just mentioned? I think just maybe I'd just love to hear your tips for our coaches and business owners for them to start to build a foundation or a real business, not just something they do on the side. 1 month they make some money, next month they don't. What would you say to those people?
The first thing they need to be doing is building a personal brand. People don't buy what you do, they buy who you are. And if you're under $50,000 or $100,000 a month, the first thing you need to understand is how can you build a personal brand? What is your story? How do you share your story online in a way that grows an audience and grows a community? Right. So right now you need to be really looking at, journal, look at what are your personality traits, what makes you stand out, and recognize at this stage of business, people are literally buying who you are. So like have a podcast, share your before and after transformation online, because people want to know what your life was before, even a small little social media carousel, like me a year ago or whenever that time was and me now. And if you continue to just share that, then you are the proof that people want the one core transformation. So build a personal brand around one core transformation. Step 2, create your core offer, make it between $15,000 to $25,000, where you don't solve the small problems, like solve the problem that you are mostly passionate about and solve it in a way that's either faster, easier, or more enjoyable than anybody else out there who's doing it. Like learn how to, position and market that core offer, and make it an experience for them to get that transformation in a way that's either faster, easier, or more enjoyable. Like an example of this is, don't be the life coach who's charging time for money. Here's a 1 hour session. That's the worst business model. Instead, what's a really cool way you can create a mastermind, or maybe you're here to create an academy, an institute, a certification. Maybe you're doing a hybrid. If you're here in Australia, we've just come out of COVID. So do a hybrid version of like group calls and like in-person experiences, do crazy shit like jumping out of a plane. I don't know, like, how can you make it a bucket list, really cool experience in that way? And the third thing is get yourself in a community. In order to grow a business, you need to have mastermind support minimum 12 months. If you don't have a business coach or somebody where you're already signed up for a minimum 12 months, you got to do 12 months, because it's that consistency of having support across every single area where you're just going to get there in less time. And it's going to be funner. You're going to have all these memories, this amazing community to help you to get there.
I love that. Such fire. You've got such a beautiful, and from the start of the call, such a balance between the spiritual healing, working on you, but then you've got the commercial. You are the Buddha and the Ben, Sammy. So you're doing so well. It's been an amazing conversation. I'd love to end with, I've got one question afterwards, but before that, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? What's the best place?
I actually have a podcast too. So if you want to sign up to my Illuminator podcast at iamsamanthaj.com. And if you sign up, we actually give you a full day of a workshop for free. And people have made tens and tens of thousands just from that 1 day free workshop. So hopefully that helps you out.
That's a great start. What a great little lead magnet. Really, really good. My final question, I like to end with a bit of vulnerability for my podcast. What is something that you're working through, and you could use the word healing, personally working through, that no one else gets to see?
It's been a childhood wound that I've gone through many layers, and I'm going through another right now, which is the fear of abandonment. So it's where I, can go into overgiving in relationships and lacking boundaries, and sacrificing my needs. So I'm really trying to stand in a whole new level of my own value and my boundaries and needs.
That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time, and just thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.